the meeting to order, and we'll rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. You got one more chance to do it. As with the first meeting, there's no public comments or input on the two special meetings. I would ask anyone that's present or that are being live streamed if they wanted to make a public comment about either one of these two meetings or the regular meeting at 7 and any agenda item to please sign up for public comments at the 7 o'clock regular meeting. We'll have sign-in sheets right over at the counter. Okay, moving on, approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions? Second. Motion to approve. Second.
Before
All in favor?
you approve, actually, I think we need to add to the agenda setting public hearing, if we go that route.
Item B.
Yeah.
Item
Consideration
B.
of setting public hearing.
I would like to add agenda item D, consideration to set a public hearing.
That will be item B. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? See none opposed? Okay. So, item A, consideration of amending the Town of Hope Mills Charter to establish 4-year staggered terms for the Board of Commissioners and adopting a correspondence resolution of intent, and all of this is under tab 1. I'll turn it back over to Town Manager Chancellor McLaughlin and our attorney, Dan Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. And just for general public, tonight, myself, Dan, Hartsogga Town Attorney, and Ashley Wyatt, our town clerk, we will serve as guidance. And so I'm going to read the background information. I'll turn it over to Dan. But our role here tonight is to simply provide you guidance on the legalities and what the process is for or against why you consider this particular initiative. Background information. The Town of Hope Mills has considered the concept of 4-year staggered terms in previous years. In order to switch to 4-year staggered terms, the board would need to modify the town charter. This action could be achieved by adopting an ordinance indicating the desire to do so. The procedure is set forth in NC General Statute 160A-102. The resolution of intent should be adopted first to detail the proposed action. Once a resolution of intent is adopted, the public hearing should be set. The hearing must be scheduled within 45 days of the resolution being adopted. Following the public hearing, the board will need to adopt the ordinance amending the charter at the next regularly scheduled meeting. There is an option of having the ordinance contingent on a vote by the registered voters of Hope Mills. However, that is not a legal requirement. If the board chose not to submit the ordinance to a vote, a referendum petition signed by at least 10% of registered voters of Hope Mills could be submitted to the County Board of Elections within 30 days of the ordinance being adopted. Should that occur, the ordinance would need to be placed on the ballot in November pursuant to NC General Statute 163-287. Should there be no petition, the 4-year staggered terms could be effective on the November 2025 ballot. NC General Statute 168-109 requires the board to have the ordinance adopted at least 90 days before the election in which the ordinance will take effect. The town clerk would then file a certified copy of the amended charter with the Secretary of State and Legislative Library pursuant to NC General Statute 160A-111, and then coordinate with the Board of Elections in order to have time to have ballots printed to reflect the change. I do know that items B and C are tied to the, on the agenda, are tied to rescinding the resolution for the meeting schedule and things of that nature. But I'd like to turn it over to Dan or the board for any questions or any additional commentary that you may have.
Thank you, Chancellor.
I'll just add, So essentially what we're considering doing is amending the town charter, which is an act of the General Assembly. Right now, our town charter says we have regular 2-year elections, but under 160A-101, there are various things that towns are allowed to amend by ordinance in your charter, and one of those is the type of elections we have. So we can amend by ordinance to accomplish the 4-year staggered terms. What we need to do, as Chancellor said, is adopt a resolution of intent tonight, if we want to go that direction. And then we'll set a public hearing. Once that public hearing occurs, then we'll vote to either adopt or not adopt the amendment to the town charter. As Chancellor mentioned, there are other ways to go about this if we so chose. One of the ways we've done it previously, this has come up a couple times. One of the ways we did it before was putting it on the ballot as a special sort of question on the ballot. That's one route we could take, but we're not required to take that route. We could also just ask the General Assembly to change it because it is an act of the General Assembly. They have the authority to change it at any time. But this is specifically designated by NC statute that the General Assembly has given us the authority to adopt an ordinance on how we want our elections to be run. So that's what's before the board tonight is a consideration of do we want to amend the charter to have 4-year staggered terms. We've got 2 possible amendments in front of you. So under 160A-101, the mayor and the board of commissioners are sort of treated differently as what you can amend. So we can amend it so that the 4-year staggered terms include the election of the mayor. And in other words, we probably have like the 2 highest vote getters and the mayor serve a 4-year term this election, and then the remaining 3 would run for election after 2 years for a 4-year term. Or we can have the mayor continue to serve 2-year terms and have the board staggered the top 3 vote getters this election and the bottom 2 run for re-election 2 years for a 4-year term. So in essence, that's how we accomplish the staggering is have half the board elected for a 4-year term at the next election, half the board election voted for a 2-year term. After that 2-year term expires, they'll run for a 4-year term, and then we'll be on half staggered. That's the general process that we would need to follow to accomplish that. Happy to answer any specific questions.
Commissioner-elect, go ahead.
We have put this before the citizens of Hope Mills a couple of 3 years ago, and it was turned down. I can't figure that many people came in line between then and now, but I guess it's possible. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents worth in and say that I don't support it at this time.
Okay, Commissioner-elect. Commissioner Graber?
I agree with Commissioner Legg. I do not agree with it because the citizens have already done this and spoken, and it seems like every year it's brought up. I cannot support this.
Okay, let's go to the other end. Commissioner Marley, and work to the center.
I'll hold myself on that.
Okay, Commissioner Scarola?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll say this. Now, when I first ran the first term, trying to learn this job in 2 years, with very limited leadership guidance during that time was very, very difficult. And after the first year, you started getting ready for the next election. So essentially, I had 1 year to try to learn a job that I really wasn't learning anyways. You can't expect people to learn a job in 1 year and then turn around and start trying to learn and hope that you have at least some continuity on the board, because you also got to look at the fact we don't have staggered terms. It's at large for the entire board. So currently, you could wipe out a whole board and a mayor and not have any experience, and it's the blind leading the blind. And it's hard enough when you're looking for experience and you're not getting it on a board. But then if you really have no experience, then you're really in a bad place. I've said this before, after every time we've come back from a convention, one of the big questions that we usually ask the boards, the different, people we network with, how long are your terms? They're like, how can you get anything done in 2 years? And I know this will upset people, how I viewed this before, but trying to learn, by trying to do this job and trying to get stuff accomplished in a town when every other year you're gearing up for another election. And it's hard. It's really hard. I know it probably upset people how I viewed it differently, but it took some time for me to be here to see what I was dealing with, to realize you can't do anything in 2 years. Like we were just talking with the budget. Well, we can't afford to get playground equipment right now. Maybe we can worry about it, like Dr. McCray was saying, maybe we can worry about next year. If she's not running, if a couple of us don't run, who's going to worry about that? Someone. You'd hope someone would care about that. I'd care enough about kids' playground equipment, but you don't have that. So it's a tough decision, and I'm sorry people may be upset with me that I feel like there do need to be changes, because you can't have the fact that we're an all at large board is the big struggle. I think I've said my piece.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Dr. McCray.
I too knew that this was going to be a very controversial topic. I was a supporter of this 2 years ago, and I was publicly, they wrote articles and everything else about me, because my position has not changed in the last 2 years, that I thought that it was best for this board to go on 4-year staggered terms. It was about 7 years. It wasn't 3 years. It was about 7 years ago when this was put on the ballot. And I do understand that maybe it has worked for Hope Mills for several years, but I do think it is time for a change. I think it's a much needed change. When we're talking about these long-term strategic plans, the number of managers that we are going through, and if anybody's very honest when they're talking about running for office, when it's during those filing period times through July through November, people are afraid to make decisions. They make decisions sometimes based on if they think they'll get elected, not on what they really feel like is important, because it is so much pressure running for office, and anybody that's ever did it before know exactly what I'm talking about. And again, I was one of those people. I did vote for no, but I am allowed to change my mind. Being educated, as I've told people before, going to conferences, being on this board for 3 years, I see things differently now. There's nothing wrong with that. I've sat through, I know Commissioner Marley and Commissioner Legg has been on this board longer than I have, but when you've actually sat through these budget cycles and you keep seeing the same thing that people are asking for year after year, it does help with institutional memory when you're trying to do budgets the next year or some projects that we talked about. But if you have the people that keep coming in and off of the directions keep changing, I think it could be very difficult for you to retain great staff or good staff, because of the uncertainty that they deal with these boards as they change. I do think the 4-year staggered terms, with the mayor having 4-year terms, is the way to go, because I feel like the highest 2 vote getters, if people are worried about the confidence, your 2 highest vote getters will be here. Those other 2 will be on the staggered term, where they will have to run for office again. So again, I know it's controversial. I know what a change normally is, and getting through the change is difficult for people. And I'm okay with people not agreeing. I'm open to hear what people are having to say, but I do think we can be respectful about this situation. I know that this is a big deal. I don't take it lightly. And I am not publicly, this is the first time I'm probably saying it publicly, I am not running for office this year, so I'm not doing this for myself. But that is why I feel so passionate about this, because I do think for anybody, it's really important. So this is not me trying to set myself up for another term. And if we go through all of the information, it won't even be for them. They have to run for office again. So it's not like something that will go into effect and will keep these current people on the board. But I do think that's how passionate I feel about it. I know that, again, I would repeat myself. I know that the change is hard, but I do think for consistency, and when we looking at doing our strategic plan, they look at our terms and how many times our board has turned over, and just to have this board turning over, or possibly turning over every 2 years, I just do not think, in my opinion, it is the best thing for this community or this town.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dr. McCray. Commissioner Marley?
Yes, sir. I'll agree with everything that Dr. McCray and Commissioner Scarola said. I also want to add that I think it adds a level of continuity to the government here. Now, this board the last 2 years has worked on a strategic plan. That was a goal that we set when we came in. We're at the end of that now. So come November, this board rolls over. That strategic plan that we spent 2 years on goes out the window. Nothing happens. Projects fall.
And the funding.
Yeah, the funding, the projects that are open right now fall by the wayside. I don't think any of us are sitting here having this discussion trying to secure a seat on this board. I thoroughly enjoyed my time on the board, but I think if all us sitting up here are totally honest with ourselves, we know that this is the best thing for the town, for the future of the town. Also look at it as a local government employee. I was a long-time employee of this town. Every 2 years, I would say this, that there was a time period during election season that employees start wondering about jobs. They start wondering, well, who's going to be on the board? If the board doesn't like the new people to come in, they don't like the manager, they get rid of the manager. The manager hires his department heads, basically his cabinet. If that new manager comes in and he doesn't like who's there and he wants to bring his own people in, every 2 years you got to worry about that. That weighs on the minds of employees. That's a personal note for that. But like I said, I think, just like Dr. McCray said, this is a tough subject to tackle, especially it being next month filing for re-election and the election season coming up. But like I said, if we're honest with ourselves, this is the right thing to do. I just, everywhere we go, people we talk to, places want to know, why are we still 2 years? It's something that we need to do. We need to tackle it. I'm with the majority of the board, but I feel like we should support a resolution to try to move this thing forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Marley. Two words I want to share: stability and continuity. Those 2 words. Whether you look at a 2-year or 4-year, those 2 words is what binds the leadership of any governing body. Stability in the leadership roles that we serve. Continuity from term to term. When we came in December last year, we had specific goals, as the Mayor Pro Tem said. 1, comprehensive strategic plan that doesn't exist and hasn't existed in the town of Pocono. Not one. There's been drafts, parts, pieces, and every time it gets to fruition, board changes. I know, because when I first came on as commissioner, the first of 2 terms, we started it, and then members changed, they died or hit the shelf or trash can, they never came back. We are a very, very growing community. So I look at it, stability, continuity, and I look at it at this vision. Well, I hold up a map of I-295. It's been shared to every member of the board. And the MIA of Hope Mills. And how this community is going to be affected by the completion of I-295. I would think, I really would think and hope that a community would look at stability and continuity as all of this becomes developed. Because all of this is going to impact our town. And it will be here in the next 2 years. When this project is finished. That is a tremendous amount of growth, either residential and or commercial, that's coming to Hope Mills. So I go back to those 2 words, stability and continuity. If the board completely changes over, this may change too. And as we invest in our town, and as more and more people move to our town, they invest in our town as well as our businesses. We're about to approve, the board's about to approve the largest budget in the history of Hope Mills, $22 million. This past year, we also took on a mission, this board did as well, with the SRO. Totally unfunded a year ago at this time. And this board successfully took that on, and that's going to be a continued mission for the town if we so choose to go in that direction. And that may change over time with the other school systems that surround our community. Is that correct? This is an issue that has come up a number of times. It's been discussed, it's been debated, it's even been voted on. Those 2 words that I just shared were the 2 words that influenced the town of Spring Lake to completely go 4 years. Mayor and commissioners. Completely go 4 years. Stability and continuity in the leadership roles of the government. So that's where I'm at. I'm not looking at myself. I'm looking at the future and the vision of this great community that we represent. And I'm looking at the dedicated staff that work tirelessly every day for the betterment of this community. And this is going to be a challenge too. Don't think it's not. There's going to be a lot of buildings that's going to have to be inspected. There's a lot of public works that's going to have to be conducted in this area as 295 comes in. There's going to have to be a lot of public safety that's going to have to look at all of this growth coming into our town. We're doing something beginning the 1st of July. We're going to open the police station 24/7. I have heard nothing but positive comments ever since this board decided that's what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to fund it. Nothing but positive comments. Then finally, we have a police station that will be open 24/7 along with our fire department. Because don't think we're immune to crime. We're not. Not at all. So anyway, I'm going to stop. Those are my comments. Those are personal to me. As you can tell, I'm passionate about it. I look at it as, like I said, I look at this decision in a vision decision. That's how I look at it. So,
Mayor, can I just make a point of clarification? Both of the resolutions of intent reference the top 3 vote getters and not the top 2. So I just want the board to be clear on what they might be voting on.
and actually, I was going to bring that up. You know, the board can change. I mean, they can keep the top 2 or the top 3. It's up to the wishes of the board of which resolutions.
Just to clarify, the resolution of intent is just to sort of give the intent. We can make small changes along the way, including the number and how we want to do the staggering. But the idea is just to give the public a fair notice of what the board is considering, so that when we have the public hearing, we'll know what.
Dan, correct if I'm wrong, the actual ordinance is what materializes the actual final decision.
Correct. Right. What you're considering adopting tonight is merely a resolution of intent. Something along the lines of we're considering doing this. We're going to have a public hearing to get input from the public, and then the board will make the final decision on whether to change the charter at the July meeting. So you're not making any change here tonight. You're just saying we want to consider this and go through the process.
Dan, there's two resolutions. One is for the mayor every 4 years. The other one's for the mayor for 2 years. Do we have to adopt one of those? I mean, do we have to approve one of those?
Yeah, well, I think, again, the concept is we're giving the public notice of what change we're considering. So that particular change, of whether the mayor is also on a 4-year term or a 2-year term, is something that could be, changed after the public hearing or the ordinance.
Okay, do I have a motion of which resolution or a resolution of intent?
Mayor, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'd like to make a motion that this board supports resolution of intent R 2025-014. And if it would be appropriate, I would like for the, and I can ask this, I'd like for the attorney to read in the record what that resolution says.
Okay, thank you.
And do we want to?
Dan, before you read that, do I have a second to the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, now we get into discussion. Okay, thank you.
So the resolution of intent would read, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Hope Mills hereby resolves to consider amending the Town of Hope Mills Town Charter to alter the terms served by board members to 4-year staggered terms as permitted by NC Gen Stat 160A 101.4. The board will consider an ordinance to amend Article 3 of the town's charter pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160A 102 to read as follows. And this will be the amendment to the text. Article 3, elections, will read Section 3.1, regular municipal elections. Regular municipal elections should be held in each odd numbered year and should be conducted in accordance with the uniform municipal election laws in North Carolina. That is exactly what's currently in our charter. We're not amending Section 3.1. Section 3.2, conduct and method of elections. The mayor and members of the town board should be elected according to the nonpartisan plurality method of elections. Again, Section 3.2 is not changing from what we currently have. Section 3.3 would be election of the mayor, and we can have a mayor should be elected every 2 years or every 4 years, depending on which resolution we adopt. This particular one says the mayor should be elected every 4 years. Section 3.4 would read election of the town board, and this is where the staggering comes in. At the regular municipal election in 2025, there should be elected 5 members of the town board to fill the seats of those officers whose terms are then expiring. 3 members, and depending on whether we want the mayor to serve 4-year or 2-year, it would be either 2 or 3 members. The 2 or 3 members who receive the highest number of votes shall serve a 4-year term, while the remaining 2 or 3 elected shall serve a 2-year term. Thereafter, in the 2027 election, there should be elected 2 members of the town board to fill the seats of those officers whose terms are then expiring. The 2 commissioners elected in the 2027 election shall serve 4-year terms. In each election after 2027, board members should be elected to fill the seats of those officers whose terms are then expiring and shall serve 4-year terms in staggered biennial elections.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. We have any further discussion? All those in favor?
Just to clarify the motions, I think the way it was worded is that we support the resolution. Now we make sure that the motion is clear that we adopt the resolution.
That this board adopts resolution of intent R 2025-014.
That's the motion. That's the second. Okay, we'll do it again. All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries 3-2. Next item is item B, resolution R 2025-015, rescinding resolution R 2024-018, establishing the town of Hope Mills Board of Commissioners 2025 meeting schedule. It's under tab 2. Chancellor and Ashley.
Based on general statute regulations, if you do pass a resolution of intent, it must be approved or considered at the next regularly scheduled meeting. So the reason why you have agenda item B is because in last year in October, you actually established a meeting schedule to cancel all of the July hearings. So being that, and there's another actual statute that you have to do this on at least before or on the date of the filing, which is July 7th. And so this motion to rescind resolution 2024-18 is to rescind the vote to cancel July hearings to allow you to establish the next hearing that this would be considered at.
And just to clarify, so we have the public hearing that we'll be setting, and then following that public hearing at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we will need to consider the ordinance. The statute says it has to be 90 days before the next election, but the Board of Elections has informed us that they would prefer that we have that to them ahead of candidates declaring, in fairness to the candidates, so they know whether they're signing up for 2-year or 4-year potential term, as well as so that when ballots are printed at that time.
Okay, do I have a motion for resolution R 2025-015, rescinding resolution R 2024-018, establishing the town of Hope Mills Board of Commissioners 2025 meeting schedule under tab 2. Second? Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion? No? All in favor? All in favor? Okay, unanimous. 5-0 in the affirmative. Item C, resolution 2025-016, establishing the town of Hope Mills Board of Commissioners 2025 meeting schedule, and it's under tab 3. I believe that's going to come back to Ashley and Chancellor, establishing July 7th.
So as Chancellor explained, we redid the meeting schedule just to include that first meeting in July. So just to be clear, this only includes that first Monday in July, and it omits still the second one in July.
Okay.
Mayor, make a motion we approve resolution R 2025-016, establishing the town of Hope Mills Board of Commissioners 2025 meeting schedule.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. That meeting schedule changes for only one meeting in July, and it is July 7th, the regular scheduled meeting. All those, any discussion? None? All those in favor? 5-0 in the affirmative. Item D, resolution to set a public hearing, June 30th. Opposed?
Yes, Mayor, based on the publication schedule in terms of when we could get a public hearing published, the earliest opportunity would be June 30th.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we set the public hearing date for June 30th.
Second.
we have a motion, we have a second to set the public hearing date for June 30th, which is what day and what time?
That is a Monday, and my recommendation would be 6 p.m.
Okay, is that included in the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to amend my motion to add the June 30th date and that it would begin at 6 o'clock p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? 5-0 in the affirmative.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, do I have a second? All in favor? We are adjourned until 7 p.m.